Alright, first graders, so today we're going to read the second half of our Sacagawea book. Remember, this is a non-fiction book, means it really happened. Yesterday we kind of read about Sacagawea's past, where she came from, what happened to her when she was young. Now today we're going to start reading about her adventure with Lewis and Clark. From the beginning, Sacagawea was an important member of the Lewis and Clark expedition. On the second day out, she collected edible roots for the men. Later, she gathered wild strawberries, plums, gooseberries, and currants. On May 14th, a gust of wind pushed one of the explorers' boats onto its side. Charbonneau panicked and dropped the rudder. The boat filled with water. While the men struggled to save the boat, Sacagawea saved the instruments and medicines that had fallen overboard. On August 12th, the group crossed the Continental Divide, a line of highlands that separates the rivers flowing east to the Atlantic from those flowing west to the Pacific. The next day, they met Sacagawea's people, the Shoshone. Captain Clark wrote in his journal that on seeing them, Sacagawea danced for the joy of the sight. Captains Lewis and Clark met in a tent with the Shoshone leader, Chief Camawut. They smoked a peace pipe together and then sent for Sacagawea, who spoke Shoshone. Sacagawea began to interpret. Then she looked at the chief and jumped off. She ran to the chief and hugged him and cried. Chief Camawut was Sacagawea's brother. With Sacagawea's help, the Shoshone traded a number of horses to the explorers. They also gave them a guide to help them through the Bitterroot Range of the Rocky Mountains. The explorers continued west down the Columbia, Clearwater, and Snake Rivers. It was a difficult journey. They encountered grizzly bears and rattlesnakes. At times, they were so cold, one of the men wrote in his journal that our moccasins froze. Other men wrote of fatigue beyond description and of hunger. The men were growing weak and losing their flesh very fast. We were obliged to kill a second colt for our supper. Along the way, the explorers met many other tribes. Clark wrote in his journal that seeing Sacagawea convinced these people of our friendly intentions, because among them no woman ever accompanied a war party, and surely not a woman with her baby. So having Sacagawea there helped the other Native American tribes know they were peaceful people. In early November, the corps saw sea otters swimming in the river and knew they were getting close to the Pacific Ocean. They heard the roar of the waves, and Captain Clark wrote in his journal, "Ocean in view, oh, the joy." For Sacagawea, seeing what she called the great waters and the remains of a beached whale, which she called a monstrous fish, were highlights of the trip. It was late in the year. Snow and ice blocked their way back, so at the edge of the Pacific Ocean, they built Fort Clatsop. They stayed there through a difficult winter of almost certain rain and cold until March 23rd, 1806, when they began their journey home. So they found a beached whale. In August, the explorers reached Fort Madden. This was the end of their journey for Sacagawea, Charbonneau, and Jean-Baptiste. In September, Captains Lewis and Clark reached St. Louis. They brought back maps and information about the geography, animals, and resources of the region. They also made peaceful contact with many Native American tribes. In December 1806, message to Congress, President Jefferson wrote that the Lewis and Clark expedition has had all the success which could have been expected. Lewis and Clark and their brave companions have by this arduous service deserved well of their country. Little is known of Sacagawea after the expedition. Some historians believe that she died of fever some years later. on December 20th, 1812. Others say she returned to the Shoshone people and died among them more than 70 years later on April 9th, 1884. But whatever her later history, during her 17 months as part of the Lewis and Clark expedition, she helped assure the success of the journey and open up the continent to the people of the United States. A river in Montana, lakes in Washington and North Dakota, and mountains in Montana, Wyoming, Oregon, and Idaho have been named after her. There are numerous statues and markers across the United States, and now a dollar coin to honor her. And then the rest of it is important dates. So about Sacagawea, and it was 1788 or 1789. She was born in Western Rocky Mountains, which is present-day Idaho. In 1799, she was captured by the Hadistas and given the name Sacagawea, which means bird woman. 1803, the United States purchased the Louisiana Territory from France. May 14th, 1804, Lewis and Clark began their journey. November 1804, Sacagawea, along with her husband, joined Lewis and Clark. February 1805, son Jean-Baptiste was born. April 7th, 1805, the expedition left Fort Madden. October 16th, 1805, the expedition reached the Columbia River. November 1805, the expedition reached the Pacific Ocean. August 1806, the expedition returned to Fort Madden. And then, an author's note. Sacagawea's birthplace is in present-day Idaho. The Hadista village is in today's North Dakota. When Sacagawea was with the Shoshone, it is believed her name was Hito or Hichu, which means little bird. The Hadista were also known as the Manatee. According to some sources, Charbonneau didn't buy Sacagawea, he won her in a game of chance. Captain Clark gave York his freedom soon after the return of the expedition. So he let his Jean-Baptiste Charbonneau, Sacagawea's son and the youngest member of the expedition, later became a fur trader and explorer. He spent some time at Bent's Fort in Colorado and was described in a journal there as the best man on foot and on the plains or in the Rocky Mountains. In the mid-1840s, he traveled to California, where he settled and remained until 1866. In the spring of that year, he headed to the goldfields of Montana when he became ill and died. And those are some facts about Sacagawea. I hope you enjoyed learning about her, and I hope you were able to complete some of the worksheet pages that I had emailed to your moms and dads. And if you did, I'd love to see them if you want to send me a photo of them. That'd be awesome, and I'll put them on the school or class website. Well, I hope you guys have a great weekend, and we will have a new social studies theme on Monday.